right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim, out here pushing this gospel and truth and sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is the brother Quana Wath come back at you, Lord will, edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will, straight to the point. This is going to be in transit, really. And, you know, just a quick testimony, man. Hey, the Lord is fucking these Edomites up, man. You know, the Lord is truly, right, turning the tides on these damn devils, man. You know, really call all Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. All right, let me read this real quick. This is Deuteronomy 30 and verse 7. It says, "In Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee." You know, and again, we're seeing that, right? Because we're in the time where Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is going to remove Esau, Edom out of the power seat and set up over it, right, over the earth, right, all creation, right, one that is profitable, right, which is Yahweh Shai, right, and the elect, right, in their proper order under Yahweh Shai. You know, these are the times that we're in, man. You know, but ultimately getting to the quick testimony. I have a client that I've been working with the last, couple of years. I actually haven't, seen her or her family, I want to say maybe in the last like 6 to 8 months. And I've done all kinds of work for them, just kind of been there, their family handyman, if you will. And, come to find out, her and her whole family just kind of split up. The man, went to another country, got a woman, ultimately pregnant, can't, and we're talking about, this is, these, well-off Edomites, man, well-off Edomites. And basically, I showed up today, and everything was up in flames. Our whole family separated. They lost everything, had to go from a big-ass fucking house, like a 5-bedroom, damn near a mini mansion, to, having to move into apartments, from the last time that I seen her to now, which is, the woman who obviously was my main contact. She contacted me through, a website, whatnot, asking for, some type of work. And, it's been that way, ever since, but nonetheless, right, it's been from the time that I seen her and her family to now, it's a completely 180, right? Downhill, losing everything, and again, it's a blessing to see, and it's heavy too, because, she has received the worst end of it, right? Versus, her husband and stuff like that. She has received the worst end of it. And it was every time that I went over there, because she was the main person, right? He was always gone working. She was the main person that I was, doing the work for, yard work, housework, so on and so forth. And she would always be talking mad shit, about her husband, about her kids, so on and so forth. And now, right, she lost everything, man. Her kids, lost her dogs, a few weeks prior, her husband, ultimately has, a new woman in another country, spent, a shit ton of their money, just so she can't have it. It was it's a lot of information, but ultimately this is what Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is doing to these Edomites, man. They're losing, right? Call Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, man. And again, right, you've been seeing, a lot lately, these Edomites are getting, fucked up. But hey, even then, right, we're seeing a lot of women are catching hell too, man. Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is sending that judgment out on these women, because this woman in particular that I'm talking about, she's got, I think, three so-called baby daddies, which that all, that's ultimately adultery, right? When you, as a woman, according to the law, right, as a woman, when you sleep with, the very first man that you sleep with, lay down with, right, that's your husband, and you're supposed to be with that man for the rest of your life, man. But see, that's not the case, right? We understand that, wrong judgment proceeded, right? Within America, right? It's the land of darkness, as you read in Job, what is that, 10 and 20? This is where, folly is set in great dignity, where wickedness is put above righteousness, man. What does it say? Scriptures say that, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. Hey, well, this is the place where evil is uplifted, So it's okay for a woman to, hop from rod to rod to rod, right? A man can have multiple wives, but a woman can't have multiple husbands, man. That's ultimately wickedness. And again, we're seeing that judgment being dealt. We're seeing that judgment being dished out by Yahweh Bashim El Shai. We're in the time of great judgment, man. And it's beautiful to see that not only, is she a woman, right? That's ultimately a harlot, right? But she's also an Edomite, and I know she's an Edomite, man. Just being around, the last couple of years, off and on, right? They helping them with whatever they need as far as housework, yard work, so on and so forth, whatever it may be, these are definitely Edomites, man, and the Lord Yahweh Bashim El Shai is judging the fuck out of them, Call law Yahweh Bashim El Shai. We are in these times, man. We got next, man, right? We truly have next, right? Let me grab that. In 2nd Esdras, the 7th chapter. 2nd Esdras, the 6th chapter. Verse 7, it says, Then answered I and said, What shall be the parting asunder of the times, and when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followed, right? So they're ultimately inquiring, right? Ezra is inquiring, right? When is going to be the end of this current rulership, right? Those who are in charge, right? You read in the previous chapters, right? Chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, right? Ezra is ultimately, why do the heathen, right, continue to, to reign over us? Why do they continue to, have dominion when we're ultimately, the chosen people, right? So we should ultimately be, and ultimately we're in this position because we went off, But see, there was a time limit to our punishment, just as Esau has a time limit to his rulership. And we're at the end of that, that time, right? Now, we're seeing that his downfall, right? We're also at the same time, right, seeing our ascension, right, through the Spirit, Verse 8, it says, And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau, right? That was ultimately symbolic, right, for that pulling down, right? Pulling Esau down through the Spirit, man. And this is what's happening, right? The Lord rose up, right, the men of the Lord, the prophets, right, to ultimately preach this gospel, this truth, right, which is, revealing who this devil is and his agenda, unto the world, right? And as we we read in Matthew the 24th chapter, right, when this gospel is preaching to the ends of the ends of the earth, then the end shall come, right? The end of what? The end of Esau, Edom's rulership, right? The current age, It says right here, it says, For Esau is the end of the world, right? And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So we ultimately got next, man. We're watching these devils being brought down. We're watching Yahweh Bashim El Shai ultimately dish out, that judgment on such a high level, right, on these devils, on these heathens, and we're seeing, right, Yahweh Bashim El Shai ultimately, dishing out blessings for us, man. Right? Lord, will we be of that number? Hey, we're gonna receive. Right, we're in blessing seasons, man. For us, Lord, will we be of that number, man? We're gonna start to see, right, Yahweh Bashim El Shai, dishing out more blessings for us and more curses upon them. Call law Yahweh Bashim El Shai, man. Fuck these damn devils, man. Every last one of them. And it's just a beautiful sight to see, man. I just wanted to ultimately, speak on that quick testimony. I know when I, started this video, I had, or actually maybe 2-3 minutes prior to starting this, screen recording, I had seen the Elder Apostle Tahar, was ultimately doing, a lesson, right, mentioning, right, and in the title of that lesson, right, he ultimately put Deuteronomy 30:7. So it's the Spirit, man. Right, it's the Spirit that Yahweh Bashim El Shai is putting on the men of the Lord to identify these things, man. That Esau is getting judged on a high fucking level, man. But with that, Lord wills, edifying, Lord will, straight to the point, I'm going to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rachak Wadash, double honor to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.